Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Seattle MLK Organizing Coalition's 39th Annual MLK Celebration. Each year, we honor Dr. King's legacy with a rally, march, and community workshops, amplifying our call for peace and economic and social justice. This year, we also honor the legacy of Congressman John Lewis and his call for good trouble, necessary trouble. This hour's workshop is Meet the NAACP Youth Council. The youth tell the truth about racism in schools. My name is Katie Harris, and together with Abiel Waldo and Krista Irwin, we'll be your moderators for this workshop. In just a minute, I'll introduce you to our presenters. At the conclusion of the workshop, we'll ask you to fill out a brief evaluation. These evaluations are very important because they help us understand who attends and how to plan for future workshops. We are committed to making our workshops and rally speeches accessible. There will be captioning for all the speeches on MLK Day, January 18th, provided through a link you can access on your personal device. There's captioning for this workshop. You may access it by going to the bottom of your Zoom screen and clicking on the CC Live Transcribe button. Then click on Show Subtitle. You should see the captions in the body of the Zoom platform then. The NAACP Youth Council is a coalition of anti-racist youth launched during the MLK Day workshops in 2018. Though founded in Seattle, this group of mostly BIPOC youth now represents 8 districts across Puget Sound and works for 9 demands for racial justice and public education. So now I'm going to introduce you to Anissa, Mia, and Eric Anthony on behalf of the NAACP Youth Council. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Eric Anthony Souza Ponce. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a senior at Ballard High School.
Hi, my name is Mia Dabney. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a junior at Cleveland High School.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anissa Raidad. I am a graduate of Ballard High School, and I use she, her pronouns. Thank you all for being here today. We're so excited to get to share space with you. So we're just going to start off with a land acknowledgement. This is from the Duwamish tribe. I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the First Peoples of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. I also want to acknowledge that it is important for non-Indigenous folks to go beyond territorial acknowledgements to redistributing their resources to return stewardship of land to Indigenous peoples. One of the ways that you can do this is by paying rent through the Real Rent Duwamish program, which you can find more information about at realrentduwamish.org. Martha, if you want to start off here.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So NAACP is one of the oldest activism groups, and as you guys know, it was like made during like the segregation times. And back then, NAACP wasn't just like a Black organization. It was diverse also back then too. And I don't know if many of you guys know this, but there was an incident where they what's it called? They made a bus on fire because, you know, like they wanted to go do activism stuff. So from there we grown, and like I said, we're one of the oldest and we're one of the largest, and we're in different branches, and NAACP Youth Council is one of the branches we have today, which is us. So yeah.
Eric Anthony, could you stay on that slide, by the way? Sorry. And then I'll tell you when to skip slides. Like Martha said, the NAACP was and has been a very diverse organization, and us as a youth council, as our own chapter, still embody that. We're a group of anti-racist students who fight for racial equity and justice in our education system. And we started out as a small group of students from Seattle who had demands to our own school board, but have expanded across Washington, and our demands have expanded across Washington as well. We now have representation from Tukwila, Edmonds, Bellevue, soon Mukilteo, and we're just continuing to grow in our advocacy. On the left is a picture of us at our second MLK workshop. This is now our fourth. So it's been really cool to get to be a part of this specific event as we've grown. Next slide, please. So the NAACP Youth Council was founded by Rita Greene, who's on the top left, and she's the education chair for the Alaska, Oregon, Washington NAACP conference. And she founded the group with the idea that she wanted to grow the next generation of civil rights and social justice activists. And she did that with the support of some awesome teachers like John Greenberg, who is one of our advisors and here with us today. And Rita and Sabrina Burr, who's on the bottom right, former Seattle Council PTSA president, the two of them worked together to secure a grant for us through the county, the Best Starts for Kids grant, which allows us to get paid for this work, which is super duper important because oftentimes BIPOC and other marginalized youth, like just by their identity, that's a barrier to access in like being in these spaces, even though, you know, anti-racist work needs to be led by BIPOC. So yeah, that's been really important in building our capacity. Next slide, please. So this is just some of the work that we do. This is our school board advocacy, which we'll talk more about later and how you can support that. Next slide. Again, something we'll touch more upon, but we also work with the Black Lives Matter at School movement. Next slide. And we also have advocacy like writing for the South Seattle Emerald. This article specifically was about our demands, which is what we'll be talking more about during this workshop. Next slide.
All right, so this is our first demand to mandate ethnic studies from pre-K to 12th grade and fully staff ethnic studies departments in every district in the state of Washington. So across the state of Washington, students of all backgrounds and identities are hurt by curriculum that revolves around white supremacy and colonialism. It's important to remember that nearly every social inequity, from misogyny, transphobia, fat phobia, ableism, all that, it stems from white supremacy. So access to ethnic studies curriculum, which seeks to educate through a lens free of the evils of white supremacy, is imperative if we seek to educate our own youth outside of the narrow structure of power.
Hi everyone, my name is Chio, so I'm going to be speaking on ethnic studies with Eric. I'm going to turn off my video because every time I speak, like the whole audio messes up. Ethnic studies is the study of race, ethnicity, social societies, nations, etc. It has never been a mandated subject to learn in the state of Washington. It's often overlooked because other history classes take over. Ethnic studies is deemed as less important because teachers are always telling you to take AP history, look good for college, take honors history, you need to complete Washington State history. BIPOC students are always felt with an overwhelming feeling of misunderstanding as their cultures are never taught in class. As we are taught about whitewashed, sugar-coated history, the backgrounds of BIPOC ancestors start to wash away as our brains are filled with Christopher Columbus, Lewis and Clark, and all these other people that are very much sugar-coated in the history books. Ethnic studies needs to become essential because it provides young people an access to the full spectrum of history, not the tokenized history such as Martin Luther King we learn every year, Malcolm X, or Rosa Parks. Like there's other people that has done a big amounts of change in this society. not only those 3 people that we have to learn about every single year. There needs to be much more to ethnic studies than the same Christopher Columbus and Lewis and Clark and all of that, because it's very much sugar-coated. We need to make a change. That's across the state.
Hi, my name is Kaylee. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm going to be speaking on mandating thorough and frequent staff racial equity trainings. I feel like this is so important, especially when our entire teachers and educators are all white and they're unprepared to teach about ethnic studies. They're unprepared to even have BIPOC students in their classroom. And I've heard so many stories of like racism in the classroom, and this should not be normal. And racism has been in our classrooms since a young age. And with my experience, I've dealt with racism and I never had a teacher that was there for me or there to support me, which is why we need to mandate these trainings and make sure that these teachers are working towards anti-racism, because it's just so important, especially when there's BIPOC students that are dealing with racism day to day, like in our classes, and school is supposed to be a safe space instead now it makes students feel very unsafe.
Hi, I'm Hiba. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm going to be talking about this also. And I think having frequent staff trainings is so important because as students, we spend 6.5 hours, 5 days a week at school. And especially for like elementary school students, they spend that whole time with one teacher mostly. And whether you want to believe it or not, these teachers affect our mindsets so much. And if we see a teacher being racist from when we're younger, for BIPOC students, it hurts their mental health and their mindset. And for white students, it causes them to become racist subconsciously. So in order to reduce racism in our lives, we need to have teachers that appreciate BIPOC students and treat them the same as their white counterparts. Okay, next slide.
Hello, everyone. I'll be speaking on the demand of increasing a voice of youth, especially BIPOC youth, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color, in decision-making at all levels of public education. My name is Leah Scott. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a senior at Roosevelt High School. I'm also the co-president of the NAACP Youth Council. And as a group, we believe it is important that as a community, we allow student voices to shine and contribute more. For me, as a student who is well known for speaking up, I want to find more ways to get not only my voice heard, but others as well. This makes me really proud to introduce this demand, which is to increase the voice of youth. And in order to do so, we really need to ensure that our district members are making decisions that students want and need. We must have them be in the room where these decisions are being made, the room being the school board. This way, we can drastically increase the voice of youth in our districts. Youth voice has been ignored for too long. It is time for us to be in the co-planning process alongside the adult change makers and not be kept in the dark. Within this demand, one of the biggest projects we are working on is getting students on the school board. We have partnered with several district leaders and community members to make this happen, specifically within Seattle Public Schools, and then we intend to move beyond just this district. Student voices deserve to be heard everywhere and have their opinions and needs be not only heard, but listened to carefully and then implemented. That is why we made this demand. It is for the students and made by the students. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alexis Burrow. I'm a 10th grader at Foster High School and I use she, her pronouns. I will start by speaking on our demand of hiring and retaining more BIPOC educators. Personally, I go to one of the most diverse school districts in the nation, and I have never been taught by a single Black educator. At my own school, there's one Black teacher and about 5 Black staff members altogether. And when we talk about ethnic studies, when we talk about all these things that are supposed to uplift students of color and make a difference for students of color and people of color in general in the school system, we can't forget that none of this is happening, because even if you hire Black and people of color for these positions, the conditions in those schools are so terrible that the retention rates are super, super low. And that's because they aren't supported. They're experiencing racism. They don't have the necessary tools to, implement all these things in their classrooms. And so they're being pushed out. And there's multiple studies that show that not only students of color benefit from having representation in teachers and staff members leadership, but also white students. There's also studies that show that graduation rates for Black students and people of color go up when they are taught by people that look like them. We need to see representation in curriculum, in textbooks, in teachers, in leadership, because those are all things that will contribute to the success of students and the success of teachers. And so if Black teachers thrive, everyone thrives. If Black students thrive, everyone thrives, because they are historically marginalized. There's no reason that we shouldn't be catering to students of color and teachers of color when there's no downside like whatsoever other than not upholding white supremacy. So if you continuously fail to do these teachers right, Black teachers right, then what does that say about you? What does that say about your district? It's more than just hiring Black teachers. It's more than just reading the books. You need to be doing the work, because if you're not, we're just going to keep coming.
And my name is Mia Dabney, and I will also be speaking on this demand. And speaking from experience, I was very lucky as a youth. My preschool teacher was a Black woman, and my kindergarten teacher was a Black man. So from the beginning, I had it out lucky because I had teachers that looked like me. I was represented from the beginning, and it really did shape how my entire life is. It was some of the most developmental part. It developed me, and I was able to see myself and my future just when I was in preschool and kindergarten, because I saw teachers who looked like me. And I think that's so important. Adding on to what Alexis said, we need to have, because representation is so important, it shapes a student's entire life. And I mean, there's so much you could say, but it shapes a person's entire life. And it's so important, because that's all, we're with our teachers all the time. And we need our students to be seen, and we need them to be heard, and we need our teachers to be seen and heard. And yeah, it adds on to everything that we are fighting against if we are not hiring more teachers of color, because they deserve to be respected just like anyone else.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry my camera's not working today. My name is Rita. I'm a junior at Cleveland High School. My pronouns are she and her. Today I will be speaking on restorative justice. So I go to Cleveland High School, and we are a restorative justice school. And from my experience coming from a pre-K-8 onto high school, from a school that wasn't incorporating restorative justice to a school that was, the whole atmosphere of the school was different, because in Seattle public schools, when a lot of administration and a lot of people in power look at BIPOC youth with a presumption of guilt, it's a lot different when you actually have educators and teachers that actually care for you and actually want you to do your best. So basically what restorative justice is there's circle keepers, and it could either be students or administration or teachers. And you basically just sit in a circle, and the circle keepers explain the situation, and basically you come to a resolution. Whether that be you don't want to talk anymore or whatever the case may be. But with restorative justice, not only are you giving students a chance to tap into their social and emotional skills, you're giving them a chance to actually feel human, rather than having a whole bunch of security guards constantly ask, why are you not in class? Why are you not doing your homework? Just with, like I said, a presumption of guilt, giving students a chance to actually be who they are and articulate and be able to use their words, and being able to feel safe in an environment where that's not really easy nowadays with everything that's going on in the world. Restorative justice actually gives students a chance to be who they are.
Hi, my name is Juwon. I go by she, her pronouns. I am a sophomore at Redmond High School, and I'm also going to be talking a little bit more about this demand. So it's really important to have restorative justice practices in our schools, in our district, and even further in our state, because we know that BIPOC people and the students that we have are disproportionately affected by disciplinary action. Even though I do go to a more diverse school and district, throughout my whole school career, I saw those students become more affected by that actions. And it's so important to keep kids in school and really learn from the experiences that they have without being discriminated upon, because school is supposed to be a system for learning, and it's important that we maintain it that way.
Hi, my name is Angelina. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a senior at Rainier Beach High School. Well, today we'll be talking about the Support Black Lives Matter at School actions, including the New Year of Purpose. So Black Lives Matter at School has been a national movement calling for originally a week of action and now turned into a year of purpose following the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. This week has a lot of demands similar to ours, including restorative justice implemented in all our schools, ethnic and Black studies implemented in all schools, and demands of that sort. And so this new year of purpose is affirming the different intersections and different diasporic peoples that exist in Blackness, and it exists in not only our country, but across the world. And so I'm going to pass it on to Edon to talk a little further about that.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Edon. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a sophomore at Lincoln High School. So I just want to tell you guys a little bit more about the BLM at School Year of Purpose. So this initiative involves incorporating days and months of action throughout the school year in order to educate students on the 13 principles of Black Lives Matter, and to encourage educators to reflect on what they're doing to create learning environments that are anti-racist. So in each of the 2017 and 18 and the 18-19 school year, SPS actually passed resolutions for supporting and encouraging schools to participate in BLM at School's Week of Action. But they have yet to do the same for the New Year of Purpose initiative. And both the National Education Association and the Washington Education Association have passed resolutions in support of BLM at School's actions. And I think it's time for school boards and districts across Washington to do the same.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lavera Brown. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently a freshman at the University of Washington. And today I'll be talking about the demand increased access to opportunities, mental health, and services, financial literacy. This demand is very important to me personally because in the Black community, mental health is often ignored, even though we endure so much, and schools usually wait until something bad happens to start talking about the students' mental health when they should be caring the moment we walk through the door. And then when this bad thing does happen, they care for about a day or two and then move on like this traumatic thing did not happen. And it's very performative, and they just expect us to just turn in our work and just go back to school like we didn't just experience something so traumatic. And I've also noticed in schools that they have resources for students for mental health, but they just don't make them known. When I was at Franklin, my senior year, a student had made it brought to our principal's attention that we don't talk about mental health enough. So with that, they decided to do a mental health week. And when they did this mental health week, this lady came up on the stage and started talking to us, and we just thought she was a special guest. Come to find out, she was our school therapist and she had been there since my freshman year, and I didn't even find out about her until my senior year. And everybody was like, I didn't even know she was here. So it's like they have these resources, but they're not making them accessible for the students, and we just don't know about them. So I just think they need to make these resources known so that students can go to them, because I know a lot of students need these resources. And to talk about increased access to opportunities, students deserve access to opportunities to help them in their future. They deserve to learn about life skills the same way they're required to do math. We need to have a curriculum that teaches them things they will need to do in their adult life, because not every student has an adult figure in their life who can teach them. We need a curriculum that teaches the youth financial literacy and how to file for FAFSA and budgeting and et cetera. For me, I was fortunate enough to be a part of a program called College Possible that taught me how to do all these things for college, such as applying for FAFSA, but not every school has access to that. So not every student is given equal opportunity, and that's just not right. And even now, as I'm going into my adulthood and like growing up and like being freshman in college, I have to deal with money a lot more, with paying for my classes and all that. And I'm still figuring it out now because I was never taught any of this stuff in school. Like if somebody asks me to do the Pythagorean theorem, I can do it right here, right now. But if you ask me to file my taxes, I'm gonna look at you like you're crazy because I don't know what to do. And that's just a problem right there. So I just feel we need to have a curriculum that teaches students what they need to know to survive into their adulthood, so we don't struggle, because there's no reason we should be struggling when we can learn this in school.
Hi everyone, my name is Aaliyah Washington. I'm a first year at Occidental College, and going off of what Lavera said, I think it's very important that BIPOC students and low-income students have access to college opportunities, internships, scholarships way earlier in their education. I just think students are not given the time to prepare themselves like their white counterparts who have access to these opportunities outside of school. And also students should have more opportunities outside of college, because we know that college is not on everybody's path, and that's okay, but they also need to know about trades and just, you know, opportunities outside of going to a four-year school, because that's a very big financial burden for a lot of families. So just having opportunities outside of that.
Was Sania going to speak as well, or are we going to keep on going?
I think we pretty much covered everything I was going to speak on.
Hi, my name's Maddie. I'm going to be talking about abolishing the HTC program. I go to Lincoln High School and I'm a sophomore, and I use she, her pronouns. So our next demand is to abolish the HTC program. The program was established in the 1970s when SPS started a mandatory busing for integration program that led many white families to leaving the district because they didn't want their kids going to school with Black and brown students. The HTC program was created to bring these white families back into the district and offer their children segregated advanced learning that Black and brown families were not offered. Testing is biased to whiteness in the methods used, and parents with privilege can appeal for their students using paid private testing, a system that highlights inequities.
And my name is Josie Jensen. I use she and they pronouns, and I'm a sophomore at Garfield High School. And students, parents, teachers, and district staff members have been expressing the harmful social effects of this program for a very long time. And the reason that we're calling it for it to be abolished, not just reformed, is that even if this program was made to be more accessible and more diverse, it would still label some students as less capable than other students, which is inherently a messed up practice. And it would continue to teach this curriculum that was designed for white students and therefore is not anti-racist or culturally responsive and would never be able to serve our BIPOC and other marginalized students. And yeah, we believe that all students deserve high quality, anti-racist, transformative education, and the HCC program will never offer that to anyone. So.
Hi, I'm Kaylee again, and she, her pronouns. I'm a junior at Meadowdale High School, and I'll be speaking on mandating climate change education, emphasizing environmental racism, and dramatically decreasing the carbon footprint of public education. I just wanted to say that, like, school, I literally learn everything about climate change outside of school, and that's also the same with things with like ethnic studies. And I literally learned this year how it connects to racism because schools never taught me that. And I feel like schools definitely we should be learning about stuff that's literally affecting us today and affecting BIPOC neighborhoods and affecting just affecting the way we're living and our futures, because climate change is real and climate change is alive and it's happening right now as we're speaking. And it definitely needs to be taught in the classroom because classrooms are where we're supposed to learn. And where am I going to learn this? Like I literally see everything on social media and learn from there, when schools should be reflecting this, and teachers should be teaching this, and our curriculum should have climate change. And not only that, teaching students and youth on the practices that will decrease the carbon footprint of the public education system.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, the project that's underneath this, specifically in decreasing the carbon footprint of public education, and the NAACP Youth Council is actually partnered with Sierra Club to get a resolution passed within Seattle Public Schools that would commit them to 100% clean and renewable energy, particularly in our Seattle Public Schools owns a lot of facilities that do not run on clean energy. So this proposed resolution, which is currently in the process of being passed, would hold them accountable to that. And underneath that, we can really see, students will be able to really see that Seattle Public Schools is taking the next steps towards creating a better environment, not only for the people that are on this world right now, but the generations that may come after us. Thank you.
Now we're going to talk about these demands specifically relating to Seattle and Seattle Public Schools a little bit. All right, so coming back to ethnic studies. Oh, yeah, by the way, my name is Eric Anthony Souza Ponce. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a senior at Ballard High School. So in school, we go to our social studies class, our history class, and we study history, white history. In English class, we read literature, white people literature. Everything that we learn in school is distorted through a lens of white supremacy. As students of color, we have never learned about ourselves. We've never been taught about ourselves in the schools. We never see ourselves in the schools. And when we are included in the curriculum, we're reduced to a backdrop or a prop to further center whiteness. What does that say to the white students about our importance? What does that say to us about our own importance? What does that say to the BIPOC about how we should be treated, how we should expect to be treated? Now, it's no secret that the city of Seattle is very segregated, and this is strongly demonstrated within our schools. You know, North End schools like Ballard High School, where I go, are predominantly white, while South End schools such as Rainier Beach are predominantly Black and brown. Within this system of racial segregation, huge resource disparities are growing. Ethnic studies curriculum, which is centered around equitable social studies and structures, is a must if we are to bridge the gaps of inequity and resource disparity in Seattle.
Okay, so my name is Chiwetel Lakweme. I go to Meadowdale High School. I'm a junior. I go by she, her pronouns, and I will be speaking on this with Eric. Again, I'm gonna turn off my camera because the audio always messes up. School is the only place that we can begin to learn. From day one, we go to school to learn. Then how do you expect us to learn in a place filled with whitewashed, sugar-coated classes? Just like Eric mentioned, we go to history and learn white history. We go to English and learn white literature. We go to science and learn about white scientists and all this stuff. We had to have a week in my school separated to learn about black people. Why can't that be all year round? Like, does that make sense to y'all? We have to separate a week to learn about them. Like, it's never all year round. The energy is never given. And that whole week is optional. So it's optional to learn about BIPOC people. It's optional, but it's not optional to learn about white people. Just like someone just said, this curriculum is meant for white students and white students only. And y'all are the ones that can change this. We have been speaking on this for so long, and y'all are the ones that can change this. As individuals from West Seattle and North Seattle differentiate in lifestyles, we can tell the difference in school within districts all over Washington. Some schools are predominantly white students, and some, like 1 out of 10, have predominantly BIPOC students. All the teachers at my school are white, except the disciplinary teacher, which makes no sense. The disciplinary teacher is the only Black teacher at my school. BIPOC teachers and students are less at schools, so that we need to make sure that we're included by white superior teachers. It's the job of the white people to listen and understand that sugar-coated history will soon overshadow the history of BIPOC, like overshadow our history, because we're always least importance. We're always least important. So y'all white people, y'all white history is gonna overshadow our history. Seattle deals with a lot of discrimination that likes to be pushed under the rug because schools like to look beautiful. Schools like to look like they're just on top of everything when y'all are not. And then it's important to start in school to bridge the gaps of races. How can we expect races to come together if the history learned literally breaks us up? The history we learn at school breaks the races up, but we expect to be together. It doesn't make any sense to me right here. So these demands must be listened to, and we must understand that the history that we're learning is not okay. And ethnic studies needs to be mandated in all schools, not an optional elective. Washington State history, we had to do that since 8th grade, but learning about BIPOC is optional. Make it make sense. That's all.
Hi, my name is Angelina once again, and I'll be speaking with Miracle on this demand calling to renovate Rainier Beach High School, an occupied renovation that should be completed before 2025. This is actually one of our demands that have actually been pretty much reached. At this time, we've, after years and years and years of advocacy from the community, advocacy from NYC and from alums, we have finally begun these stages and received the levy money to renovate Rainier Beach High School for the first time in 63 years since its initial building. And so we're going to be speaking a little more about our stories here, starting with Miracle.
All right, so hi everyone, my name is Miracle. Whole name, Patu Jackson. I will be sharing just like an upbringing, like lens from what I guess this demand means to me and why, why it means a lot to me actually. So I grew up in the Rainier Beach neighborhoods and actually in the schools. My family, they just pretty much brought me, and taught me to serve and not for my own benefit. So it's pretty much ingrained in me. I used to go into like the building, Rainier Beach, well, current building. When I was younger, I still know the name of the custodian, shout out to Kim. But I've just grew up in that school, and just for it to finally be renovated, it means a lot. Seeing it from just a different lens, I look at it as a home. And that's why it's super important for us to not only think about just the fact that we've came a long way to get this renovation, but think about the aftermath of what this renovation could look like. I find it important that we should reflect the student population with our school and the new building, and we should keep it that way. Also, just preventing gentrification. Who's to say that all this hard work that we put in goes to waste by just all of our kids not even being in the area to attend Rainier Beach and being pushed out further south? And then that's when the white people come and pretty much take over everything. It's already in the works, but we just have to work together to just prevent that from happening. But more about my story. Yeah, I used to be in the building a lot. I noticed just the poor conditions with like the ceilings, rats, all that. But yeah, I just feel like it means a lot to me, and not only me but my family. And I get kind of emotional talking about it because it's just, yeah, it's very like sentimental to me. But yeah, on to Angelina explaining her perspective and more on gentrification.
Yeah, so I'm a current student at Rainier Beach. I've been here since my freshman year. Obviously, coming from a school that didn't really view Rainier Beach as like the ideal institution to go to for high school. My opinions immediately changed as I had attended the school and seen all the beauty and just really been taken by the South End legacy of a building, one that just has so much history and so much
pride in its people and in the different people that have come out of our school. I mean, there's so many like famous athletes that come out of Beach, and like the rest of Seattle will like not claim Beach but claim our athletes, which I think is kind of weird. But you know, that just happens. In terms of like the building, I did notice from my first days there, like this is a pretty old building. It just wasn't working as well as a school building should be. I think we often forget the importance of the physical structure and just the physical area in which a student is learning, how important it is to have that sunlight, how important it is to have bigger, larger classrooms, how important it is to have updated technology that's not only like computers and things like that, but having enough outlets and having enough functioning light in a room and making sure everything isn't like all fluorescent, you know. And we're seeing across the district, we've seen schools pass us on that, and they'll get their like newly renovated 21st century state-of-the-art building that has a major impact on how these students perform. And that's a huge barrier that Rainier Beach High School has faced for over 30 years now. So that's why this new building is so important to us. Speaking a little more about like gentrification, as Miracle had
said earlier, we were talking about like how growing concerns around gentrification in the South End neighborhood are valid as we've seen it over the past few years. Beach, I swear, my freshman year we had like 5 white students and everyone else was like BIPOC. And as time has gone on, obviously the numbers have risen with the growing rates of like housing and all these other issues happening in our neighborhood.
And that's had a major impact on the demographics of our school, the demographics of our neighborhood. And there's not many success stories of where they show mitigation of such an economic and political issue. However, we're set to believe that Beach will have this legacy of what it is now and what it has been for about 30, 40 years, written in the wall somehow. Right now, they've had current students and past students in charge of or just being part of the planning for the new building, and even explaining all the things that makes Beach Beach. And we're really working towards a building and towards a new legacy.
There's force and bias.
Really quick, 2 things. Angelina, at points your audio was like getting softer and then getting louder again. I think maybe if you're on a laptop, like your speaker was getting covered. Sometimes that happens and it like makes the audio. So just if you speak again, I think like we heard most everything all the beautiful things you said, but yeah, just to let you know, we just no one wanted to interrupt you because you're saying such important things. And then also Katie said in the chat to make sure that we please say each demand out loud for people who are visually impaired. So if we could just do that going forward.
Thank you,
So can y'all hear me now? Okay, sorry, it was on my lap, so I just moved it to a table. So this demand is called Seattle Public Schools Fire Superintendent Juneau. This was a demand that we had introduced over the summer last year because of the growing concern with the superintendent's handling.
Angelina, we can't hear you right now. The problem is back.
Okay, heard.
Do you want for me to talk about this one? Okay, so while Angelina figures that one out, I'm just going to speak a little bit about what we've been doing for this one. Superintendent Denise Juneau, the superintendent for Seattle Public Schools, came in with a big promise of trying to do more for social equity, specifically for the BIPOC students, the Black and Brown students in Seattle Public Schools. And it was very ambitious, and we were really looking forward to seeing what kind of change could come. But really, we just saw all these egregious actions happening where she was actually silencing the voices of the Black and Brown people in Seattle Public Schools. Under her watch, there were all sorts of egregious, horrible actions being done by the teachers, the abusive teachers against BIPOC students. For example, putting Black students in cages, literal cages, like for a timeout, for a punishment, that kind of thing. Physically assaulting BIPOC students, and Juneau knew about this and she did nothing about it. And these are just like a few little anecdotes. So really, we were trying to focus on getting Juneau out of this situation so that way we wouldn't have to keep having this kind of egregious leadership within Seattle Public Schools and replacing her. And actually, she recently in the last few weeks announced that she would not be renewing her contract with Seattle Public Schools. So, I mean, I guess we can give ourselves a little pat on the back for that one. And these are just some slides showing, like, we wrote an article for the South Seattle Emerald right here. And we spoke at these events about why Superintendent Juneau needs to go.
Hello, everyone. I am one of the co-founders of Youth Voices for Justice. For those who don't know much about the group, we are a group of youth activists advocating for real changes to end systemic racism against BIPOC communities in SeaTac and Tukwila. We have a list of our own demands on our page, but recently we decided to join NAACP Youth Council and add our demands for the Highland School District to terminate its relationship with all police departments by removing police officers, including SROs and SSOs, from all schools within the Highland School District and relocating those funds towards community chosen transformative justice programming and mental and physical health services, and investing in student wellness within our schools, as well as BIPOC healing spaces made by, led by, and made for various BIPOC communities. As we know, this large scale problem starts 400 plus years ago with slavery, moves into segregation, Jim Crow laws, water suppression, unfair housing practices, vision equality, low quality education, the school to prison pipeline, and the list goes on. But it's the system of inequality, and acknowledging how BIPOC communities have been systematically unsupported, building from legacies of genocide, anti-Blackness, enslavement, colonization, imperialism. That's why BIPOC communities must be centered in how our tax dollars are used. The school to prison pipeline is the disproportionate tendency of minors and young adults from disadvantaged backgrounds to become incarcerated because of increasingly hard school policies. This is an issue that disproportionately affects Black and Brown youth, and what is contributing to this problem is police presence in schools. There is no evidence that police in school lower crime. However, there is evidence that the presence of SROs results in criminalization of routine discipline issues with students being sent to juvenile courts rather than to the principal's office, and that this criminalization disproportionately harms students of color, especially Black students. The evidence also shows that most schools are better off diverting their resources towards evidence-based practices that build students' social and emotional competence and build better school climates. That's why we're fighting for the removal of SROs and police from schools, because having police in school doesn't make school safer. Instead, it ends up only pushing students to the school to prison pipeline. Research also shows that schools that have more police officers and SROs present, students are less likely to graduate high school compared to students in different schools with no police presence. My high school, which is Tai High School, located in SeaTac, has about 8 to 9 SROs and is located right next to the SeaTac police station. Black and brown students at Tai make up about 98% of the student population, and it is the #1 top school in Washington state with the lowest test scores. Also, we have about like only 2 to 3 counselors that oversee hundreds of students. Also, our district, it spends about millions of dollars to over police its students compared to a few $100,000 to fund services, programming that actually work. And as the beautiful sister, she said earlier, like, make that make sense. Like, that doesn't even make sense. And this just further proves my point how the presence of SROs in our school just jeopardizes the safety, well-being, and futures of our students by adding to the racial trauma that impacts them and their family. And this is why we decided to join forces with other NYC youth activists to demand that our school district government redirect the money that funds police presence in schools to putting counselors in schools instead. Thank you.
I believe next, that's me talking, right?
I thought that we had one other person that was going to speak on this demand, but it's good. We can keep going.
If we do, sure. Okay. Well, what's up, everybody? My name is Reynaldo Rosario. You could call me Ray. And today, I'm just gonna be talking about some of the things that you can do to support NYC. Now, one of the main things that we have to remember is, in order to be an activist, you have to be active. You have to get up, stand up, and show out, especially when it's necessary. So for us, some of the things that you can do is contact Washington State legislators and tell them to implement NYC demands. You could contact the boards or go to and testify at the board meetings. You could show up to events like Black Lives Matter at schools, which is probably going to be no. You can show up to events like Black Lives Matter at School Showcase, the Young Gifted and Black, which is February 5th, or events like BLM at School Mobilization in Seattle. That's likely going to be February 10th. And if you want to spread this message of our group, you can invite us to speak at schools you're associated with. We'd be happy to do so. And yeah, we have to remember that it takes us to make change. So one love, everybody. Peace.
And be sure to check us out on social media. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook. You can email one of our coordinators, John Greenberg, here, and definitely follow us on Twitter. I'm the admin for that account, so by all means. All right, well, thank you so much for coming, everybody. I think now we're going to move into questions and answers and data collection.
Yep, I'm going to put the link in the chat for the panelists to the questions, and then Eric, Anthony, if you want to pull them up on the screen so everyone can see those questions that we got. And feel free to keep asking questions, attendance. We'll try to get through as many as we can. Did you hear any of that? Was okay.
I heard that.
Yes, we did.
Just making sure. Should I just throw the first question out there? Is that what are we waiting for anything? Okay.
I feel like you should.
Okay, so this is open for any NYC panelists to answer. We had a couple questions about how interested students can get involved with the NYC. Like, do they have to be a certain age to get involved?
I can answer this one. So as a NYC member who joined in 8th grade, I was like kind of nervous at first, and I was like, oh my gosh, like there's all these older people. But definitely know, like if you want to join, you can definitely contact us on any of these social medias, especially the email for John Greenberg. He is the like head of like the youth part. And if you reach out to him and let him know you're interested, then we'll get a move on that. But definitely don't be discouraged or don't be intimidated. If you really want to do this work, then definitely sign up.
So if no one else has anything to add to Rina's answer, we had a question about not just how students can get involved, but how other folks can get involved. Someone said that they are a community member, but they don't have any children. How can they show up? Others are asking, yeah, just members of the public, how can we aid in the demands? If anyone wants to answer that.
I can answer that. I would say to help support, sign up to go speak at school board meetings, vote, listen to the youth, continue to listen to us and uplift our voice and give us the spaces to be able to speak. And also follow us on our social media so you can see events and workshops that we host so you can come and support us more and spread the word.
I would add on to that, like especially the school board part, and just always putting yourself in positions to like speak in front of people that need to hear our message and like advocating for our demands or our groups, or even Black Lives Matter at school and like the Year of Purpose, Week of Action, like making sure that we're not the ones doing all the heavy lifting and like always going outside like, hey, I know this group and they're doing this great stuff and we should be implementing it. Like always advocating and like just getting numbers on our side for our message.
I have one more thing to add to that. So like if we talk about racism in the school system, that can't be separated from the other ways that racism manifests in the community. Like for example, via redlining or depriving BIPOC of, you know, like gaining generational wealth. And so I'd also just encourage you to think about like what your positionality is and where like that can potentially intersect with the school, and you can, you know, advocate for certain things like I don't know if that made sense, but like with Seattle Public Schools contracting with different community-based organizations, like if you know BIPOC and Black-owned community organizations, like advocating for contracts to be done with them and other types of things. So that was just more to answer the question of the person who asked about like, if I'm not involved in the school, if I'm just a public member, who can I lobby these demands to? Maybe just thinking about how they connect to other systems outside of school, but still impact BIPOC students. Gosh, there's so many questions. Just more on involvement. Someone asked, what can white educators do specifically to support their BIPOC students? And just in general, what can educators do to advocate for youth in what can educators and parents do to advocate for younger youth, like a middle and elementary school youth?
I can speak on this. I feel like what can white educators do specifically is take your time and do the research and look up, like, find stuff out and like teach it to your class, but also leaving space for BIPOC students to speak up and making sure that making sure that they're getting what they need in that classroom and just being there for them and supporting them throughout like many things. And for like educators of like elementary and young and middle school, I feel like what I missed out during those times is just like just discussion about like culture and race and etc. Like we don't learn about that when we're young, yet we go through those experiences of racism when we're young. And that's like really unfair because I feel like I wanted, like when I was younger, I wanted to learn more about different people's cultures or my cultures. And I feel like that with that like kind of like way of lesson planning, that could really help like students feel more comfortable in their classrooms and more safe.
I would like to add on to that, and I think for someone who's a white educator, you need to like reflect on your own like teaching practices and how you treat your students, how you treat your white students versus your BIPOC students, and make sure that there isn't any difference and that BIPOC students are given the opportunities to talk about themselves and don't feel that they can't talk about themselves because it won't be accepted by other students, and just have them know that you support them is the most important thing.
I agree with everything that everyone just said. I want to add on a little bit, like, first of all, just adding on to that, saying, you know, letting BIPOC students come into your class with their whole selves, not just leaving half of themselves at the door, understanding that our ethnicity, our cultural backgrounds, our race is part of who we are. And in every subject, creating space for us to express ourselves, you know, in all aspects of our identity. Even for classes like math and science and stuff like that, where like it's harder to think about how you can incorporate themes of racial equity. Just making space for us. Like the other day in my math class specifically, a student said some very racist things about Cubans. And like, it's a math class with a white teacher. It's not relevant to anything, but we started having this whole discussion about why that was racist. And it took up like more than a third of the class time. But the teacher created the space for us to do that, took the space out of their class for us to do that. And that made a very big difference. So that's just like a little example of how you can create space for the students of color in your class.
I want to say something on this too. It's Chiwetel again, Chiwetel Kwame. I'm a middle high school student. To make the classroom a better place for the BIPOC students, everything that everyone just said is perfect. Listen to them and then actually move forward with what you're listening to. You can listen all day, but if the actions don't correlate, then there's no movement. You saying that, oh, we will listen to you, we will support you, but then watch your white colleagues do all of this and not say nothing. How does that, it doesn't make any sense, because you guys are the ones that know the most about the school. Y'all run the school. Y'all are a part of the school. We listen to you guys because you're our teachers. But then you guys are the ones saying, we listen to our students. We're here for our students. We want to be here for our students. But the same people saying that will watch your white teacher colleagues do racist acts and not behave well and do all of this. My teacher at Merida High School, he was very much discriminatory towards his students, very much discriminatory towards me. And if I were to even say something, nothing would happen. Talking about we listen to our students. What listening are you doing if the actions aren't correlating? That's what I'm saying. You have to make it make sense. If your intentions is to make your BIPOC students feel safe, if your intentions is to help us feel included in a city that doesn't even want us to be included in, then how are you going to watch your fellow teachers commit these things and not say anything? Who does that make you? Not an ally in my eyes. So like, and just like what someone said, I want to touch on what somebody said earlier. They said, what does that make your district look like?
I'm all right.
I think someone's trying to say something, but I can't hear you. But what does that make your district look like if your teachers are not standing up against their own fellow teachers? What does it make it look like? It is not a safe place for BIPOC students, that's for dang sure. And that's what I can say about that.
Thank you all so much for answering that question. I put this in the chat, but just know for folks who have asked questions, people are also answering them via the Q&A function and typing their answer. So be sure to look at that. So kind of moving away from involvement to COVID and digital learning. Someone asked in the chat earlier if the Youth Council is focused on digital equity at all, and just kind of ask more about our experiences with digital or hybrid learning this year. And then they also asked how they can support us. So you can answer any of those kind of questions if you'd like.
If I can kind of speak on this question real quick. I've noticed this is like a good thing and a bad thing from my experiences switching from in-person to online learning is all of a sudden everybody was like, how are you doing mentally? Like, how is your mental health? Are you okay? It's okay not to be okay. If you ever need anything, reach out to me. And my one takeaway from that would be reciprocate the same energy when I see you in person. Because so often Black and brown students feel like they have nobody to go to. So even when a lot of educators reach out and are like, I'm here for you, that might not always be what students need. Sometimes students just need a safe place where they can just feel like themselves, especially when you have a whole bunch of adults reaching out at the same time, like for the same thing. That could become very overwhelming and very overbearing. And another thing that I've learned from like my online experience was like, it's okay for students not to like speak like on Zoom or on Teams and stuff like that. And I know it's very frustrating to educators because you're just trying to like teach students, but sometimes you need sometimes students need that space. Like when you really think about it, like there's people who were 17 when quarantine started and are turning 19. Like our whole teenage lives are being like ripped away from us from under our feet. So I think it's very important for educators to understand that like we're trying just as much as you are, but it's kind of like a meet us in the middle thing. So you can't just expect for us to do 150 assignments in one day and do 2,000 paragraph essay. And then we have to do this because at the same time, like no matter how little or how much work you give us, that work-life balance is now all at home. So even if it's one quiz, it's like, oh my gosh, like there's so much to do. So just being mindful of different students' experiences and also taking into account not every student has lights, not every student has housing, not every student has internet access. And sometimes for the little hotspots that the districts give, what are you supposed to do when you live in a household with 9 different siblings? That will not support that. So just keep in mind of different situations that children go through and just being there for them, but not always in a speaking aspect, just sometimes in like a vibrational aspect.
Can
That
I
was
add
really, really well said. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
to add on to what Rita was saying, she's absolutely correct. And it is really frustrating when you're having 8 different assignments in each of your classes that are due within the same time. And be mindful, like we're working students, like we have a life, we have families at home, we have work the same way that educators do. And emailing us, talking about, we understand, oh yeah, we understand that it's a rough time, but giving us more and more assignments than you did than the last day. You guys are setting us up for failure. Be mindful that our mental health right now is not in the best place because we have been stuck at home. Some people have toxic families. Some people have abusive households. Some people do not have access to have the things. For example, for me, I don't have access to the textbook and I'm currently failing my biology class. It's not in my power to get my textbook right now, but who's getting punished for it? Me. You guys want us to succeed, then allow us to actually succeed rather than load us with so much schoolwork to the point where we can't breathe. It's okay if we miss a class or 2. It's like we're stuck at home 24/7, and I feel like people need to be so mindful of that. Yeah. So.
And I'd like
Could I'm gonna, oh, was someone speaking?
Mia, you can go first.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I think I was talking about this with BSU a couple days ago, but Over quarantine, when we weren't in school and over the summertime, I think I really got time to just be with me and not get, I wasn't a student. I was just Mia. And I've never ever had that in my entire life. And it was like a spiritual awakening because I got to discover who I was, what I wanted to do, what I was interested in. Like I learned how to make rings. I learned how to love myself properly and take care of myself. And going back to online school, it was really difficult because all of that energy of being a student and then having online school and then just the world and the chaos happening, I know for me it was a lot. And it wasn't just draining because we were in school, but it was because it's just like there's so much happening in life. And I feel like a lot of educators are forgetting that we just need time. We needed time to step back. Because I know for me and other students I have talked to, we have truly found ourselves and separated our, you know how people say there's like a soul and then there's the body and the soul is in the body. I feel like as if I have separated me as a student and found my soul is me as a human being, as a person. And online school is taking that away because it's so much. And I think we haven't changed the way, we already need to change the education system in so many ways, but online school needs to change in so many ways too, to adapt to what's happening in the world and what students are going through. And that's just my experience with online school and what I think about it. And I can talk about it for hours, but I think Kaylee was going to say something, and then Eric Anthony has something to say too.
Really quick, I'm so sorry, Kaylee, to interrupt. I just want to plug the evaluation. If people who attended could please do that, or at least pull it up in their browser so that you can do that after the workshop. We also had a couple questions about like student representation that we didn't get answered. So please, like with any extra questions, send them to John or connect with us on social media and we can direct those questions to everyone. Sorry, Kaylee and Eric Anthony, finish your answers.
Yeah, to add on to what everybody was saying is that like all our demands can go either way, digital, or it could also go with in-person school. There's like no excuse for people to not put anti-racist practices into their classrooms. And I also feel like I agree with like Rita about teachers need to keep the same energy for mental health when it's online and when it's in person, because the amount of times I've seen people literally cry in the bathrooms at school and then come back into class and do a test, like that's not okay. Like teachers need to start thinking about mental health outside of digital learning, because it's not only there, it's literally everywhere. Our mental health affects us everywhere we go. And I just noticed that like now teachers are bringing awareness to mental health because of online, but I just hope that when we get back to in person, you keep that same energy in the classrooms.
I think I agree with everything that everyone just said. I think we have some really good discourse here. I did want to point out that it is currently 1:16 and this was supposed to end at 1:15. So I want to say like, thank you so much for coming, everybody. Thank you for supporting us. And we really appreciate that. And we're going to wrap this up now.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful workshop. The evaluations are already coming in and people are have uniformly wonderful things to say about it. I want to share some links about the MLK. Oh, first, somebody's screen sharing. Eric Anthony, can you stop screen sharing? Thanks. We still have a number of MLK events coming up. And I wanted to let you know what they are. Tomorrow, we have the youth event, which is always really, really wonderful. On Monday, we have the march and rallies, and they will be on our website. You can read about our COVID protections, and we'll also have PPE there for people who need some. We have 2 more workshops this afternoon. You can follow the MLK workshop link for information about those workshops. And the evaluation link is already in the chat. And also you can email us with comments about workshops at mlkseattleworkshops@gmail.com. So that concludes our presentation. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming.